Now, Mortimer, you know all about it and just forget about it. I do think that Martha and I have the right to our own little secrets.
Hi Sean, congrats on winning the 11-second club. I really enjoyed watching this. There's a lot of really nice acting choices in here. So your prize is this critique. I think what I'd like to do in this critique is break it down into various sections, looking first of all at acting, which is kind of the broad scale, and working down into the more minutiae. So looking at some mechanic stuff and then really fine-tuning the little details. So if I break it down into first shot and second shot, just to simplify things, I'm just going to play the first shot first and go through what I see, more broader strokes in terms of acting that you could maybe push to plus what is there. But first of all, I really like the acting choices. What I really like is there's some great posing, but staging is really nice here with the light coming out of the box and it sort of frames the two faces and we know immediately where to look. So that, straight off the bat, works really well. One thing that strikes me here that could improve and make things read a little bit better is being more cognizant of where you want the audience's eye to stay throughout the acting. So you're kind of doing that already, but I feel like there's some room to make that even more clear and stronger. So the general idea for me that I'm getting, which is I think was your intention and intentional, is the focus is mostly on the male character, right? We're really focusing on his reaction until she closes that suitcase. So with that in mind, I feel like you possibly have, let me rub this out, I put that there as a reminder, but sorry, I lost my chain of thought from rubbing that out. So with that in mind of trying to focus the audience on the male character ones in the book, because that's where you have all your calories for acting choices, right? He's rubbing his face, he's trying to reach in and grab it, all that stuff is great. I would encourage you to do less with the female character. So her pose is great. It's right where you need her to be so that we know she's talking, she's between the box and him. So visually that makes sense, right? She is literally between him and what's in the box. She doesn't have to do much. She can just be there delivering dialogue. And anything that she does do is very minimal, which will force us to stay looking at the male character who is the main meat through that moment before she shuts the suitcase. So with that being said, how would I approach that? So you see the stuff that you've got where she's sort of circling her head at the beginning there. And then she looks over to him. Those are fine ideas, but I would say, do you need to do such a big circling of the head? Do you need to do any circling of the head? How little can you do with her there? And I know quite often the temptation is, well, my character has to keep moving because I'm animating. But I would challenge you here to try to achieve as little as you can. Like the goal being, if you can get away with nothing, do that. Obviously, you have to do the lip sync, and the facial stuff in her eyes is all important and good. But I see now Mortimer. So she says that, and you go, now Mortimer. Can you just go, now Mortimer, right? And keep it very still. We'll be watching him, so it's not like she'll feel unanimated. She'll feel appropriately still to not draw her attention. And then when she looks over, you have a little bit of an arcing thing, right? Where she arcs and leans in. I wonder if you can just be simpler with that, like try to get as little as possible down here and in the neck, and just basically going from this pose to that pose. And really it's just about one head angle to the other head angle with as little going on in between, or rather sort of from one to the other, right? Don't need as much body support. Because each time you add all of that stuff, it is nice animation, but it's telling the audience that that's where you want the attention to go. So my rule is kind of wherever the most movement is happening, that's where you're indicating to the audience to look. But you don't really want to be asking them to look at her at that moment, right? You want them to feel that she looks over at him, but you want to stay on the guy who we're trying to process. Oh, he's really like astonished by what's in that suitcase. He's going to go in and reach for it, right? So we want to stay with him through there. So less on her through there would be good.
Know all about it.
And then once she decides to close that suitcase, I think he's starting to anticipate a little bit. So I think if you could get, like, for him to reach, I see why you're stopping there, because we can read the hand, but I would see if you can get to there, but beyond this, maybe keep going for a couple of frames, right? So don't stop here. Try to keep reaching in, and if the hand goes in the suitcase, that's okay, but I'm trying to figure out. So you would remain down here with the head, right? And the hand would go into the suitcase, and it would start to close, and he wouldn't pull back until here, and his hand would almost get trapped in there, right? So we just see it starting to pull out. His head could be really close into hers. That way we feel like he almost got caught, and then you can just sort of, where would we go to from here? This pose that you have on frame 65 could easily be that one frame later. So we almost got caught, right? So we're almost in the hands, almost in the suitcase, but starting to come out, and what we'll get there is a lot more sort of push and pull overlap with these characters, right? So I feel like she shoves her face into his and shuts the suitcase, and he recoils. So we get sort of, rather than them both recoiling together, we get push and nudge up, like that. And it'll give it a little bit more oomph for he almost got his head caught in there and she snapped it down on him. So there's a little bit more overlap that you can play in there, just to enhance that feeling that you already have. And then once we get into this pose, I feel like the ideas are great. It feels a little bit like you're bouncing around in there and going you're hitting a pose, relaxing out of it, and then hitting it again, right? So it feels like a double beat, and it's very on the money of the timing of the dialogue. So it feels like you're kind of hitting the dialogue too accurately and sort of bouncing around it. What I would suggest there is the same sort of idea, but to make it feel more like a progression of him recoiling and her advancing on him. So, which you kind of have, but because you get to your pose, right? This one here with her, and then you sort of, it comes down, right? So, okay, let me explain a bit clearer. She is coming from this position and sort of angling in like this, right? And for that to feel like a progression, the next one should feel like it's similar, but you've angled in more to him, right? And if anything, pushed up and more into his face. So if we look at, where's the next one? Okay, if we look at that pose, and then this one, it's more like she's gone down in that direction, right? See, the head feels like it moved down that direction. And what we really want is to go from this idea to that, right? Like really getting closer to him. So that might mean straining in there a little bit more. What does she say through? Just forget about it. So you're kind of going in, rather than being just forget about it, which feels very circly and round. Round movements obviously feel more softer, right? If you get more of a just forget about it and you're jabbing forward, that's going to feel more aggressive. So it's not a million miles away from what you already have, but just slightly nudging those pauses. And rather than coming up and being circular like that, it may be more of you get there, overshoot, come back a bit, and then shoot out a little bit further in the same direction, right? Similarly for him, he's doing a similar, kind of the same idea. He recoils, circles around a bit, and then sort of is kind of doing this, right? So it feels very soft and round. Slight tweak to that could be that you get to the pose, rather than getting to here and then sort of overlapping the head, I would overshoot it. So if this is your goal, this is a great pose, love this. But maybe rather than being sort of overlapping that head, allow yourself to get there a little bit earlier, but overshoot it, right? So you can have he's going in that direction, right? So an overshoot would be everything nudged in that direction. So you could have his head a little higher, but also stretched, right? So, and the shoulders a little bit higher. And then you, 1, 2, 3, come back down to this pose. So you get an overshoot in there. And obviously when you do that, you would overshoot everything. Stretch those eyes. Everything. Oops. You can get rid of that. And so what I'm basically trying to do is, so you get like that overshoot and come back, and then on the second thing, you want to go that way as a progression. So I'm looking at that pole. He's in here. The progression would be having him kind of over here, right? So leaned a little bit more and going up that way. So his head might be a little bit higher. Recoiled away from her. So it feels like we went further away. So that the overall sort of feel in the graph editor would be pull like this and then up there, right? So this is the overshoot. So this is your pose, and then this is your second recoil further than the first one. So that's the general stuff with the acting. Oh, there's a little bit more. At the end here, I really like your choice of having him reach out for that suitcase, but I kind of missed it the first time because you've got so much going on with the body. So it's a similar sort of note with the acting, is that wherever you want the audience to look at what you want them to register, that's the thing that you kind of want to have moving the most, because that's where the eye will go. So because you lead with the body, I'm kind of looking here and not at the hand. I caught the hand like on the second or third time through. I thought, I wish I could have caught that clearer. So I'm wondering if you do less with the body, maybe you just kind of, well, no, don't do less with the body because it hooks up really well with the second shot. But maybe what you can do is delay that stuff with the body, but lead with the hand. So that if the body's further back through here, you'll get like a nice sort of hand reaching out here. What am I drawing? Sorry, I was talking and drawing at the same time, and it did not translate into a coherent drawing. So where I drew it was a bit too low. I'm trying to figure out where exactly you might here. So you might be further back here because you're changing the motion, you're just delaying that back part, which means his arm would be reaching out and you would get like a reaching out with the hand, and then the body follows. I do like this end position. So I'm trying to figure out a way to get to the same point at the end. Would be great. So that's all the acting stuff. In terms of going finer detail with this shot, let's just get into the nitty-gritty of the mechanics. So first thing I notice stepping through here is that hand seems to be stuck in space and his head is moving out of it, but it's locked in space. So a little bit, I think the hand needs to move with the head as it comes back. So it would stick with it and then peel off. But at the moment it feels like it's probably peeling off, but the way that you're having it peel off feels like it's staying in space and the hand is coming away, right? Sorry, the head is coming away. So there's that relationship there. Love all this interaction on the nose and face. It looks really believable and nice. I do wonder if there's any way in your rig to plus this would be to have the fingers sort of drag the eyelids down a bit with them as they come past. A bit like what you're doing on the I'm gonna need a finer pen for that. I can't get finer, but just a little bit of tug on the eyelid as the fingers, well, that one, the finger doesn't touch, so we wouldn't want that one, but just on the other side, where you sort of see the finger pulling on the cheek, it might tug the eyelid down a little bit, and then obviously like come back to there. Might just be more of what you have, but just plussing that a little bit. I did feel like when you bring this hand up here, it feels a little bit sluggish and believable in terms of timing and mechanics, but the disadvantage of going that speed, which feels more naturalistic, is that when you get up to this position here, you have to go straight into that finger wiggling, which I really like, but I think you could stage that to be a little bit stronger if you just got this hand up just 1 or 2 frames earlier, so that you kind of get whoop, and then the fingers. It would, we would register the hand being there, and then we'd see the fingers. At the moment, it feels like it sort of flows into that and loses a little bit of the attention that it could have. And then in terms of, I think all of that through there is, we have all that stuff. Oh, and just sticking on this guy, in the interest of having that feeling that he gets somewhere and then he goes a bit further, I would say, rather than going into the fist on these hands and then relaxing, where is that? So you go into the fist, I like that pose, then you relax there, right? And then tense it up again. I would go into the fist, stay in the fist, and then get into an even tighter fist as you go back. So it feels like you're getting somewhere and then going further, right? So you've got a level 1 stage recoil and a level 2 stage recoil in terms of the whole pose, but I'm just talking about the hands here as well. Okay, so for the woman, she looks pretty good mechanically, although we talked about keeping that simpler. For the lip sync, I think is the only thing I'm seeing in here worth talking about. My overall feeling is that because if you're going to play it so that we're really looking at him and she's being more still, I think you could punch the lip sync up a little bit. And in general, it feels like it's hitting on the audio. But therefore, at speed, it feels like it's playing a little bit late. So I might shift everything 1 or 2 frames globally, the whole thing earlier, because when we're talking, our mouth shapes form ever so slightly before we hear the sound, and the way that you've played it is they're kind of forming as we hear the sound. So shifting the thing globally, a couple of 1 or 2 frames earlier, and punching up when the mouth opens. So if you're going to open the mouth, say on, I think it's now. So there you've got 1, 2, 3 frames to get open. I would see if you can, this is good for an N. Now, I would go and excuse me, because you already find it. I wonder if you can just jump to that, and then this one would be, you know, closer to the final. So we get just a bit more pop on the open, and then this is good. Same here. We got 1, 2 frames. I think this one I would just get closer to. Same here. So it seems pretty consistent, right? That you kind of go from closed to open. You kind of, this is your open, kind of going even like that. And so the first frame feels like it's more like halfway, but I would sort of favor to jump open and less on the second frame. You're closer to the third fully open. Shapes are nice. So there's that. Oh yes. The audio is very quiet in here. I'm trying to hear it. Why can't I hear that very loud? More tonight, so. That was it. Okay, and here, I'm hoping to see a more shape. This feels, if I draw off to the side, it feels like you're kind of got this going on, but it's in Mortimer. So I would try and get a more sort of rounded And when you come through here and she's pushing, I kind of feel like I want to see the and just forget. I want to see a nice, because she's really just forget about it, shouting it kind of at him. Where's the The audio is so quiet through here. So in here, I know this might seem a little bit late to have this shape, the open, but it's really nice to have here, I think. Let me just rub about this so we can see her face a bit better. I would be tempted to keep the open mouth longer so that we just see her shouting it as she, let me get black. She sort of jumps forward, right? So just. And then you're back to here, which is good. And how she gets out, it looks great. What I really like, actually, that I wanted to point out that's working really well, is how, and this is much like what I was suggesting with the guy's hand, is she's leading out with her head, which feels really good. Like she's decided to go, so her head is taking her out. he's reaching, so his hand will need to reach. So this is working really well there. Her head is kind of dragging her forward. So that looks great. And I think that's everything that I found in this first shot. Yes. So let's jump to the second one. And I know this may sound like a lot, but I'm being hypercritical and trying to hit everything for you, down to the smallest details. Alright, so this second shot here, jumping back to a more broader scale, talking about the acting choices. First, I think with the same idea that you want to focus the attention on the person who you want the audience to look at and make sure that they're giving most of the emotion, you've done a really good job in this shot. I think you've kept the guy simple and he's not doing much until he goes to the window and then reframes the shot so that we're looking at her. That works great. I really like how you've done that. Even the timing of it. He gets over there really fast and when he needs to. So that's really successful. For the woman, pretty good job as well. A couple of things I didn't read were where the owl is coming from, because it's so dark in there. And I just felt like there were some beats in here that were you were hitting every beat in the dialogue, and I felt like a couple of places you could simplify it so we read the main ones now, and I'll go into where that is. It's only in 2 places really. But otherwise the acting choice is great. It's really fun having a fall out the window. It's unexpected for the dialogue, right? The audio choice. It's a very interesting piece of story that you found with this audio. Love it. And the timing of when she raises back up out of the window, all of that was working really nice. So those are the main. The acting is pretty good in here. The main thing was just simplifying things down in here, where she at the very beginning, where she. I do think that Martha and I feel like you're hitting. I do think hit Martha and I hit blah blah blah, right? And I think that you can simplify that and make it read clearer if you just go from this idea that she steps over, the bird jumps on and goes straight into the sort of face snuggling, and she just has one beat that she steps over and goes straight into the face snuggling, because this one where she stops and nods to him and then goes into the face snuggling, it feels like you're trying to cram too much in there, right? And I don't know how much you're really gaining from having that head nod and having the bird jump onto the forearm and then into the face snuggling, but it definitely does feel crammed, and it's just for me it's just begging to be simpler, and that if you took the time to just get into those poses with less, timing constraints, it would read clearer and could really execute the mechanics better. So that would be my biggest note for the shot. Is it also feels like she walks up to the ledge, stops very abruptly because she has to get all that nodding and arm in place for the bird. I would say give yourself a few more frames for her to come to a rest. Get the arm on there at the same time, but the body, you can have that come to rest a little bit, take a little bit more time on that and let it settle at a more sort of natural pace. And then she can be saying, I do think that Martha, and go straight into the snuggle thing. So put him over here. I do think that Martha, and if she gets there a little bit earlier and then the bird comes in, depending on how many frames it works out to be there, that could work too. If it's the same timing, that also works. But I would err on if she can get in earlier, that's good. Probably not if she has to get there later. So trying to get straight into from this pose. Like picking back up here is good, right? So we're going from here to there to there. and the stuff in between is just noise. So take that noise out and allow it to be a more naturalistic sort of coming to rest. And then for the bird, I wonder if, to make that clearer, because I didn't read it the first time, like he's coming on, there's a lot to take in because she's nodding, he's reaching, the bird's jumping. If she goes straight into that face leveling and the bird just takes a bit of a higher flat and lands straight up on her shoulder and then nudges in, right, that might read clearer. So that may sound like a lot of re-engineering, but really it just means you can keep the hang time a little bit longer than that, which will, when it's hang timing, we'll be thinking, oh, there's something there, what is that? So now, oh look, now it's landing and going into this, right? So you basically want to get to here. This is your sort of key that's working really well. But if you don't do that, jump onto the forearm, you'll have more time to hang time and then get into that comfortably. At the moment it feels very busy and I get confused about what's going on because it's sort of wiggling around in there too much. It just feels a bit rushed, right? So getting straight into there with bird and her will give you more time to sell that mechanically. And then all of that, I love all of that snuggling stuff. So that's the biggest note through there. As we get to this point where she jumps into the window, some really nice musical timing in here with that I enjoy. So I love all of that. I feel like two things I think could be clearer, but I love the acting choices. The bird jumping up and then landing, it feels a little bit one-to-one with her. So it goes up and then they're coming down together. So if you give a little bit more hang time, like 1 or 2 frames of the owl, so that she goes down and then the owl comes down a couple of frames later, so you get more of a, I think that would just give the owl a little bit more weight, and we'd see her landing on the back like this, right? So just overlapping that action of the owl by a couple of frames later, and I feel great. As she jumps up onto this windowsill, that's great too. Acting wise, I love the idea of the little shake, but I kind of missed it the first few times through as well, because you've got other stuff going on at the same time with her. So I would say the thing that really works well for me is the shaking of the luggage, and that's what I would prioritize. So with that in mind, the way she recoils so much down here, you see how the head recoils down here, then comes up here. I'm looking in this area and I don't see the handshake. Also, this recoil of the head is the biggest movement, so that's where I'm looking, and the shaking of the hand luggage feels smaller, so it feels less like it's giving less attention. So I would make that recovery sharper and smaller to allow you to feel that this is the thing with the most movement and reread it. And if anything, you might even be able to, I would keep the hand the same, but you might be able to amp it up by having a little bit more swing and rotation in the hand luggage, right? Just to draw her attention on the hand luggage shaking. Because she's saying our secrets, and the secrets is the box, right? So we want to go our secrets, and she shakes it in front of him. So that's where we're looking, and that's the message that's coming out of the acting. So that's just clarity in terms of the acting. And then as we come off here, acting choice again, or rather not so much just acting choice, but clarifying the acting choice. I feel like she turns too early. I really want to see that evil laugh a little bit longer. So I would delay at least till she's closer to the end of the laugh. So maybe here we're still looking at her laughing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 frames later, roughly, as a starting point. Maybe even more actually, because there's another little laugh. Oh yeah, she says, okay. So as late as you can get that head turning back around would be good. Like that would be, you know what, that I'm gonna be bolder, say longer than that. I'd say maybe to try to get to at least here-ish and then turn just at the last moment. And that will really help. So we'll see her. Because really we're not interested in her turning and going away, we're interested in her laughing at him, so we want to rest on that a little bit longer. So those are the sort of acting areas, more nitty-gritty, sort of mechanical stuff. Start with the guy. This is pretty good actually. I don't have a lot here. I like how you the hook up here where he's sort of reaching. I kind of like the way you overlap that. That works great. And then yes, if he leads with the hand, will that change? It may, but I think you could still get away with it. Maybe just start a little bit later, or it might work as it is. But I don't care too much about the overlap being an issue. I think it kind of works in this situation. And when he gets up, I think two things. This little reaction here that he does, every time you do it, I miss it because of where it is. I think it has to be there. But just to throw the idea out, I would wonder, is there a place that you can do it slightly later? Well, no, because then it'll take away from her leaning out. So I think it's where it needs to be kind of boxed in a little bit there with where it can go. So that looks good. I think when he gets over here, his hips come up and they have a nice sort of bounce, but then they level out. I would see if you can just work the translation in Y a little bit better to get the bump, bump, bounce. Just TY, so up, down. This is where you come, takes the weight, then back up again. So just a little bit more working the TY. So what would it be? It would be, so you're just getting a little dip. And you do have one, which is why I drew a bit. But it feels like he lands and he just sort of eases down and then eases up. So it feels more like that. And I'm searching for this kind of weight, the sharper that sort of drop, the more that's going to feel like he's a heavier object. And then when this hand plants on the wall, it sort of shifts around a little bit, right? I would try to stabilize that on the wall. Just there, this sort of shift that way. I would try to get on the wall, stabilize it, but then having the sort of feeling of it impacting and squashing against the wall, what you can do is have the fingers, wrong way, splay out a little bit. So just like that, right? Splay out onto the edge of the window. And that's all I have in him. He looks great. For her, I think, let's see. I covered some of the mechanical stuff already. I kind of got ahead of myself with the acting stuff, didn't I? So you have some of that already, but in particular, when she comes in to walk, it feels like she sort of hits if I'm looking here, it feels like she hits a wall and bounces back. It just makes it feel like a very abrupt stop, like a like this, like she hits something. So if you're doing what we talked about, removing that beat where she accents the dialogue and just getting straight into the snuggle, you'll have time to ease that and make it feel a little bit more natural. I think it's important that you get that hand on the ledge when you do though, just so you can see. It takes our eye to that owl, so I have to keep that where it is. I like the hand switching of the suitcase. That's really successful. I'm just sticking with her for the moment. I'm not concerned about the dialogue. I'm sorry, the lip sync through here, because there's so much going on physically. I'm really focused on the physicality. So I don't mind if there's anything that's a bit soft in the lip sync. But saying that, it may be nice to just punch the do, right? Punch that open a bit sharper and wider. and Martha. Do and Martha could be bigger.
I sit the Martha down. I have the right to our
As she drops out of the window, I like how you're throwing the head back. This feels great. I really feel that. And this feels really good. I just wonder here whether but you've got the bird there. I wonder if you could get the same angle on the head, get that neck throwing itself back a little bit too. And on this one, you probably wouldn't see much of the face. It would be down here. So it just feels like the neck. It feels like you're throwing the head, but the neck is staying. So if you throw the head in this pose, the way you have, but from this point on, the neck gets rotated back as well. I think that'll just feel mechanically even stronger. Well, essentially what we're going to be getting as well is, if you're looking at the line of action through this pose, really nice here, but the head kind of is above it, right? So it might be nice if the head continues that. Let's get what I want. Good makeup. We're just flowing with that line of action. Why are we drawing it like that? So what I'm trying to do is this, right? So we're getting this progression. So basically this is where the neck starts to bend. You get a little bit more bend in the neck. And I love all that. And all this stuff is great. All right, last but not least, the bird. So what I would be thinking of doing here is drawing more attention to the bird by having more hang time. Now we talked about this because I got ahead of myself with that earlier, right? So jumping up, but just hanging a little bit higher, because what will happen is we'll get the biggest motion will be the bird going boom, and then it will hang up there a little bit. So it will make a big jump in screen space, or I will go there. It will sort of hang there for a little bit longer, so we'll register it, then we'll see it come down, and we'll be following, or I will kind of go, oh, here's something, and look, it's going there, and now they're snuggling together, is the idea. So motion-wise, it's cool, just getting a little higher, hanging more, then coming straight into that snuggle. It feels like you've got just the right amount of frames to do that. So all this I really like. And again, I've gotten ahead of myself with this not here, but just a little bit extra hang time here so that we can delay that drop just by 1 or 2 frames. So it's like secondary to her. Love this idea that she grabs onto the shoulders. That works really well. The overlap on that through there is really good. Just as a side note, because I got distracted by seeing how much I like this. The staging here is great. Like 2 faces looking out there. And I almost missed this, so this is another note of plussing what you have just to make it more readable. But I like how she's throwing herself out, and the owl is doing the same. But I almost miss it because that wing's occluded by the window frame. So one thing that you could try here, I think it would work, is that just to get more wing, try and get those wings out a little bit more. So we see, oh look, jeez. It will also help because you'll get a nice shot. A bit more drag on that one might help, just to give us a bit more register of, you could even get a little bit, not that you need any of it through there, but just doing that kind of thing will make those wings even more clear. And then as through this end section here, it feels like the owl kind of comes up and hits a straight line. I think just a little bit more weight of it, like bouncing through the air, because it's got this heavy weight. So the path would be kind of more like that, rather than coming up and then just flat lining. But yeah, that's kind of the majority of what I see. I feel like I could always go on forever with this kind of stuff, and I do with my own work. But this is definitely where I would probably stop and pass all that stuff, take another look. One thing I think I forgot actually in this first shot, I'd written down and wanted to mention was just one last point. When he's in here in the recoil, I'm not sure if you're trying to do this and it's just not coming over, because it looks like you might be, is that his eye line to her being a little bit more like he's looking at her. So that would mean just nudging those eyes over a little bit more like that. So it looks like he's wide-eyed and looking at her. Like that. Same here, but in both of these. Maybe need to have a bit of them down on the eyes. Challenging to draw this because it's so small. But yeah, you get the idea. So that's kind of everything. Really great work. And again, congrats on winning the 11th Club. It's well deserved. And hopefully you appreciate my insights. And I'm not sure if you're going to take it further or things to consider on your next sort of project. But yeah, great work.